Let's move on to some more uh, climate change stuff. So there's a lot of articles around this. There's a lot of discussion around this. We seem to be talking about this every single day. Has coronavirus killed our chance to stop climate change getting worse, or given us an opportunity to act? This is from uh, ABC Radio in Australia. Ian Dunlop worries about his grandchildren. He worries time is running out. We run the risk within the next probably 5 to 10 years that we may trigger irreversible tipping points in the climate system, he says. He used to be a fossil fuel industry executive. Wow. Now he advocates for action on climate change. Global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next 20 years or so is essentially baked in. In the next 20 years, gosh, that'd actually be that would be good news if that's all we got in 20 years. And Ian fears it won't stop there. 3 degrees Celsius, the best national security experts in the world consider, will be social chaos. Guys, do you think I'll be reporting on social chaos in the next 6 months? Is social chaos already here? You can already see that and what happened with our brush fires. You look at major events like that and the social fabric really starts to break down very quickly. But he's not without hope. We're currently living through a life-changing, economy-twisting event, a global pandemic. Ian sees our response to coronavirus as a dress rehearsal for a much bigger challenge. The only way we can really address climate change now is by some form of emergency action. Gosh, do you think maybe like the action we're taking right now in response to coronavirus? Excuse me. We've left it too late to move through what people have been calling a graduating transition. Well, even if we brought down, well, okay, so emergency action. We've already taken emergency action this year in face of coronavirus, and 91, nice. Somebody says 69. Had Vollmer says 91. We've already, so emissions have dropped 17% in the last 2 months, or 17% this year. Yeah, you guys, if you can like up the video, that'd be cool. Get more people here. So emergency action on coronavirus has actually become emergency action on climate change unwittingly. And lowered emissions by 17%. That's pretty amazing. So that looks like emergency action, right? So what if we could do that, going into the future, just continue this action, this emergency action? How much lower could we, how much more could we lower emissions? How much more could we affect the trajectory of a structural change in order to lower emissions? We've shown ourselves that we can do this. Nice. Okay, 92, 93. Nice. 666. Get out of here, Salt Lakers. Oh, great. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. 95 watching, 39 likes. Thank you so much. Rosa Remen, thank you for the super chat. Will I be in my 3rd trimester? What are you talking about? When we're on the other side of this emergency, will we have the ability and will to refocus on climate change? Can we rebuild a fragile economy while taking action? Or will coronavirus push the issue of climate change to the back burner? A good question indeed. It just goes on to read other stories, people asking the same question. We've already answered the question. We've already said, yes, we can actually do something with a consensus that something is really scary, a huge emergency. Salt Lakers, I'm going to do that right now. Okay, I'm on it. Um, so we actually can take action. We can do something. The problem is what? The problem is political will, societal will. It's an agreed upon event that coronavirus has the ability to take a lot of people out, and that's a really scary thing. And we don't want that to happen. And so therefore we can organize ourselves in a way to shut down the spread of coronavirus and greatly reduce its impact. Gosh, golly gee whiz. What if we just told the truth on national television? If our politicians and our TV personalities could all, huddle together and go, guys, let's tell everybody how scary this is. Maybe we can generate enough public will to do exactly what we're doing right now. But we got to get back out there. We got to open up the economy. We got to get back to business as usual, because that's more important than the future of the planet. Okay. Right, Rich Diana, we're already rebelling against the shutdown. Forget smaller footprints. All right, let's move on. Here's another blog post from George Sakroklides titled "The Art of Managed Collapse." This is from yesterday. An apocalypse that no one will ever even notice as we experience the days of COVID-19 and lockdown. A very interesting new term has emerged in our language, the new normal. It is what everyone is looking for. Businesses, individuals, politicians, we are all longing for a sense of normality, a sense of stability and routine, away from insecurity and uncertainty. We are actually looking for the time when we can all close our eyes again and go on autopilot. Yet it takes a conscious step back to realize that there is something terribly wrong with the term new normal. It doesn't make sense. In fact, it is an oxymoron. How can something new be normal? Just like this novel virus, our situation is completely new. We are facing a new reality, one that may as well have a short expiration date itself before it becomes superseded by another reality and then another one. Which of these realities is the normal one? Normality and stability are fantasies. They are just wishful thoughts and figments of our imagination. In reality, nothing ever stays the same. Hear, hear. But we seem to be really good at convincing ourselves that it does. As a biologist, I'm intrigued by how different organisms and biological systems manage to regulate their reality through complex chemical and physical pathways that have taken millions of years to evolve. These pathways are so perfect and ingenious that they have largely become part of our autonomous automatic functions, much like a thermostat sensor knows when to turn the heat on and off. These mechanisms take place while we work, eat, sleep, without us even noticing them. Our rate and depth of breathing, for example, automatically adjust to the air temperature and concentrations of oxygen without us even noticing. In both physical and psychological terms, we have sensed or experienced any change in temperature or oxygen concentration, but our vital life support systems have, and by adjusting our breathing rate, they are giving us the false perception that we have maintained our previous position when in fact everything around us has changed. Fish in the ocean are able to excrete salt from their body and maintain a low salt concentration internally, which is essential to their survival. Plants and animals shut down their reproductive systems when they are low in energy, while everything else continues as normal. Thermophilic bacteria living in hot springs in Yellowstone National Park have developed an entire complement of heat-resistant biochemical pathways comprised of uniquely adapted enzymes and heat-stress proteins. To them, this harsh, inhospitable environment of 70 C feels like what room temperature feels to us. The bacteria have become so accustomed to the almost boiling water that they are thriving in it. All of these powerful processes can be summarized broadly under the word homeostasis, which in Greek literally means what it does: maintain the same position, find a balance as if nothing has changed. Regulating our reality, fooling ourselves, quote unquote, is therefore an essential part of our biology. It is part of our survival. And homeostasis becomes a very dangerous concept when transferred to the way that our brain works, because it means that we are not always able to sense when the water is getting saltier, when the air is getting thinner, or when the heat is rising. And we are similarly unable to distinguish fake from real news or wake up to climate scientists who have been raising the alarm about climate change for almost 6 decades now. Another term for this mental homeostasis is denial, resistance to the truth. I'm going to also add trying to stay in a comfortable place or a safe space, especially when we are presented with new evidence which suggests that our world may not be what we thought it was. Our mental homeostasis, kicks in and is able to magically turn lies into truths and truths into lies, therefore enabling our society and our economy, our so-called civilization, to keep calm and carry on, to justify the path of self-destruction that it has chosen. When it comes to adapting to climate change and humanity's current predicament, this regulation of our reality is even more efficient than in the biological world. It is perpetrated by the media, by reassuring narcissistic politicians, by those who want to maintain the status quo. It is maintained by the business as usual mentality, by the thinking that if we all just pretend climate change is not happening, it will never happen. If we all just go to our CO2 emitting jobs in our CO2 emitting cars, eating our rainforest fed beef burgers on lunch breaks, then our criminal behavior becomes normal. If everyone is having children, then the criminality of bringing a child into a condemned world disappears. This is what happens when homeostasis or denial is combined with herd behavior. Our society does this so ingeniously that we cannot even register this as denial. Those who do are not simply seen as experiencing a different reality. They are seen as delusional alarmists and doomists. No, say it ain't so, and are isolated by the socioeconomic system as enemies and threats to the system's existence. Roger Hallam of Extinction Rebellion was once accused on the program Hard Talk of being too negative and scaring people about climate change and ecological destruction, when he could, in theory, be making a much bigger impact through positivity and giving people hope. His answer was disarming. If you are a doctor and you need to tell your patient they are dying of cancer, you have the responsibility to tell them the truth. Being part of the system is the equivalent of sitting in a train carriage as the train begins to leave the station. Looking out the window, all you see is another train which, by sheer coincidence, is moving at exactly the same speed as our train, though we may feel some acceleration as we experience the pressure of horizontal inertia in our seat. Our eyes, which are fixated on the train next door, are actually telling us that we are not moving, that we have not moved at all. It takes incredible courage, the type of courage that Greta Thunberg had, to say to the whole world, you are all crazy. I'm the one who's sane, sitting here alone on the steps of Parliament with a handwritten sign. Climate change is unfortunately perceived by our brain as a slight bump in the road as opposed to a dead end followed by a cliff. Even as signs of the approaching cliff become more pronounced, our brain quickly adapts and finds a new balance, a new normal, as well as a new world, a world where we have accepted that there will be no Arctic ice, where we have accepted that much of the world around the equatorial regions will be too hot to inhabit, that starvation, disease, and wars over resources will become permanent fixtures, and that the sixth mass extinction will only leave a few species behind. If we want to accept all this, we need to be honest with ourselves and be prepared to also accept that our own extinction is also a part of this new world. As always, good stuff from George Saccoclides. Lastly, as we wind down toward the end of this video, this also is something that needs to be repeated as much as possible, because there are so many people out there just really desiring to have an alternate story be told to them, right? They don't want to know that climate change is real and that it's really bad. So if somebody can tell them that the climate is always changing or we're going into a solar minimum, then they can go, oh, phew, everything's going to be fine. We're good then. So again, the reality is that we are going into a solar minimum. It doesn't matter. It does not matter because climate change is far outpacing any cooling that we might have gotten from the solar minimum. It's outpacing it so rapidly that we are about to experience probably the hottest year on record in 2020. It's not even an El Nino year. So temperatures are accelerating. Temperature rise is accelerating. We're continuing to go up in temperature even as the sun is putting out less energy. So that's got to tell you how bad the problem is. The sun is experiencing a less active phase called solar minimum, but it won't cause an ice age. This is from May 20th. CNN, at the center of our solar system, the sun is a constant force, keeping planets in orbit, providing Earth with just the right amount of light and warmth for life, and even governing our daily schedules. While we're used to the sun rising and setting each day, the sun itself is incredibly dynamic. And just like us, it goes through phases and changes. Over time, those changes in our star have become more predictable. Currently, it's going through a less active phase called a solar minimum. The sun experiences regular 11-year intervals, including energetic peaks of activity followed by low points. During the peak, the sun showcases more sunspots and solar flares. In a solar minimum, the sun is much quieter, meaning less sunspots and energy. In the next few decades, some solar scientists think that we could go into a grand solar minimum, quote unquote. And there's plenty of, YouTube channels dedicated to telling you all about this. Don't worry, guys. This climate change thing is all a hoax. We're going into a grand solar minimum. It's a farce. See, it just snowed the other day in May on the East Coast. So that proves that climate change is a hoax. It's just something to remember. It snowed the other day in May on the East Coast because that Arctic air that should have been in the Arctic was displaced by record high temperatures in the Arctic, 80-degree temperatures in Siberia. That's why it was snowing in May. If anybody wants to actually understand the science before they make a video telling people about the grand solar minimum. But this solar minimum won't spark another ice age, they say, and that's likely due to climate change. Likely, as in is due to climate change. The warming caused by the greenhouse gas emissions from the human burning of fossil fuels is 6 times greater than the possible decades-long cooling from a prolonged grand solar minimum, they wrote. Even if a grand solar minimum were to last a century, global temperatures would continue to warm because more factors than just variations in the sun's output change global temperatures on Earth, the most dominant of those today being the warming coming from human-induced greenhouse gas emissions. The end. Scientists have known the solar minimum was coming, but because it's a regular aspect of the sun's cycle, sunspots were peaking in 2014, with low points beginning in 2019, according to NASA. Anyways, they're going to just talk a whole lot more about the sun. And I'm not going to read any more of this, but it's an easy article to find if y'all want to do that. My only hope, so I'll throw out a little bit of hopium out there for you. My only hope would be that the solar minimum might help to slow. It may, doubtful. It may help to possibly slow heating just a little bit. That might, which might give us a little bit of time to do some compassionate degrowth, and or figure out a way to reverse some of the effects of climate change, possibly technologically, I don't know. Deploy some of those, ocean mirrors to reflect the sun. I don't know. Who knows? We're going to have to do whatever we're going to have to do really, really quickly. So if the solar minimum gives us maybe, another 5 or 10 years that we might not have had, then, that can be the upshot of the whole situation. Do I have a lot of hope for this? I don't know. Not a lot. Pass the hopium bong, Kevin. We need it. Yes. Here you go. Smoke up. White roof shingles are now a thing. Well, yeah, indeed. We're going to have a whole lot of white roof shingles. I am Sweetleaf. Not quickly. Now. Exactly. Now. Hey guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel at the links below. PayPal, Square, and Patreon. Also, all of my live streams are available for listening on Patreon if you happen to miss them during the day. So you can sign up for my Patreon for as little as $1. If you want to go check out the live streams, they are all there. Thanks a lot.